Players podcast. I'm Freestyle. Thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time joining me, the philosophy of this podcast is to speak to the players who are shaping the metagame so that their voices can be heard. This week's voice, PonderousCZ. He's been on the podcast before after a top 4ing a Pauper playoff with mono green land destruction, catching everybody off guard in doing so. Well, he doubled down with a top 4 finish in the championship itself with an updated version of the same deck, which is actually very surprising, as you'll learn, because that wasn't what he intended to play that morning when he woke up. It's a great story, and I'll be honest, Ponderous is a great guest. Ponderous plays Pauper for fun, and that makes the interview fun. He's the kind of guy that knows where there's a good elephant party. Thanks for coming back on the podcast. It's a pleasure, and I'm really curious how you found yourself on mono green land destruction, because we really predicted you to be on something else.
It's good to be back on the podcast, for Sal. Thank you. I really enjoyed it the first time. I'm sure we're gonna have a blast the second time also. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ponderous. I play Pauper only. I brew some fun stuff from time to time. But I guess I'm most known for the mono green Ponza decklist that I've worked on and that we're gonna talk about a little bit more today. It wasn't the decklist I was meant to play in a tournament, but in a champs. But destiny happened, and that's why I played the deck. Basically, I couldn't register a different one. It didn't work for me. I could have restarted Magic Online, I guess, but I just felt like it was meant to be, and apparently it was meant to be. I finished third, and I'm really happy about it, even though it was so close to the dream.
So we had some spreadsheets going. Kerblixiny, or just Kerblinks on MTGO, Kerblixy on other things, and Hampus won. They both had spreadsheets that were very detailed, and leading up to the event, both of them had you on mono green land destruction, because that's the last list that you had published, was your list that you qualified with. And I argued with both of them. I was like, there's just no way he's going to play mono green land destruction. Like, I talked with the guy. He was looking to destroy Zoria's Chanceries that day. He read the metagame perfectly. He's going to see this as a Tron metagame. He's going to show up with some random brew, and you just need to mark him down with like something spicy. The point of this spreadsheet is to metagame correctly, and we just need to put a big question mark next to Ponderous, because we can't predict what he's going to do. Like, it doesn't fit into the philosophy of the rest of the spreadsheet. So yeah, I was a little surprised when it was mono green land destruction.
Okay, that's kind of great. I like this thing about myself, that nobody can really expect what I'm gonna come up with, so that kind of made me happy for a while, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I was working on a new version of the mono green destructions, because I just felt that a lot of people are going to be on Tron. I don't have spreadsheets like this. I didn't really think it through that much. I don't have so much time to dedicate to Pauper. So I just wanted to play something sweet. And honestly, the black-white flicker list is not the best. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't succeed as much as I did. It's kind of janky, let's be honest. But it's super fun. And, ephemerating, chittering rats is just something that feels so great.
I mean, it looks super fun. I'm looking at the list right now. Are you sure you want the Gurmag Angler? Because I kind of feel like it's a little out of place. There are a couple different cards in here that I wouldn't mind seeing more copies of, like Akiba Gang Shinobi, especially if this would have been for the championship. I would have really liked to see, multiple copies of Akiba Gang Shinobi in this main deck, just to, if you can ever be on the play against Tron, and land turn 4 Shinobi and get in for 2 hits, I mean, you're going to win all those games, especially if you're bringing a Chittering Rats back to your hand with it, or even a Ravenous Rats. So, I mean, this deck list has potential. I think this deck list has potential. I think you shouldn't sell yourself short. I mean, the deck does look sweet.
Yeah, you're right. Akiba Gang Shinobi, I was gonna run 2, but I kind of felt like it feels really bad drawing multiples. It's kind of expensive to cast, and I really wanted to play 4 4 gray merchants because they're just really good with ephemerate. I kind of felt like, I'm not gonna be. It's not gonna work if I'm gonna put 2 in. But I feel like maybe the Gurmak is also. Now when you mention it to me, I wanted to play just 1 Gurmak, because multiples is bad, but 1 sometimes is pretty good with the fetches and I don't know, against removal. But I guess you're right. It doesn't really fit the theme of the deck. And also I play Unearth and stuff, so yeah. And Chainer's Edict, maybe it's not great, I do agree with that. So I'm kind of glad that I wasn't able to change the deck, because, yeah, I don't know, it's super janky, but I think the idea is great, it just needs a little bit more work.
I would imagine that there are definitely going to be some people out there who listen to the podcast, have the opportunity to check out this list, and they're going to try it for themselves. I can pretty much guarantee that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to mention that this isn't my original idea. I did play against an opponent who played this deck. He was tackling the deck building from a different standpoint, so I just tried my own version of it. I think it's if I just ponder it a little bit more, it might be really sweet. I feel like it could use a little bit more speed, so like Dark Rituals maybe could be good. Something I want to try out.
It looks very well prepared for certain metagames, right? Like elves and fairies seem like they might have problems against this. You have main deck witches, you have main deck Chainer's Edict, so Bogles may not be prepared for that. You have additional effects towards that matchup in the sideboard. You've got, looks like, plenty of game against Affinity. Well, maybe not as much as I thought at first.
Yeah, I have just dead weights against Affinity.
Yeah, the snuff outs aren't bad either, but the Chainer's Edicts might turn out to be pretty poor if they're on either Frogmites and Flare Husk, which people, sometimes they play, sometimes they don't play in Affinity. It really depends how many Edicts are running around. I think that's the correlation for that card. I'm not an Affinity player. You're going to smash burn, that's for sure, with a deck like this. It'd be interesting to see how it does against some of the other decks, but you're black deck, so you got plenty of stuff to work with. If you're worried about a deck like Boros Bully, you can just start playing Echoing Decay, play maybe another Crypt Rats in the sideboard. Like, I don't know. I think that the core of the deck is sweet, and I think that there would be... It's definitely a good league deck, I feel like. Or maybe if someone has a Friday Night Magic out there, this would be like the perfect... I don't know how many Pauper Friday Night Magics there are, but, this would be a sweet one to play. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like a lot of fun, if you just... I think it's a good deck to take to your LGS, play with your friends with this. But yeah, I haven't given it as much thought as I would like. And I don't know, it feels like I wanted to make it good against Tron, but I had 3 relics in a sideboard and 2 Duress. But I guess it's not enough. It feels a little bit weak against Tron. Mono green Land Destruction is better.
Yeah, that definitely seemed to work out. I actually have some questions for you about Mono Green Land Destruction. So the biggest difference from this version and the previous version is Trumpeting Herd. Tell me about Trumpeting Herd.
Oh yeah, Trumpeting Herd, man. That's something I'm really proud of, actually. I feel like it's one of the best additions to the deck, because it's just so resilient against removal. You can play it on turn 2. The thing about Land Destruction is, it's nice you keep your opponent from playing stuff, but you need to also pressure your opponent. So that's why I never really liked the plan to ramp really hard with Land Destruction. So that's why I play cards like Kozilek's Predator and Nest Invader, and just really cheaper cards. I do play for Ulamox Crushers because it's just an exceptional creature. But Trumpeting Herd worked out really well. Like, you play this on turn 2, and on turn 3 and 4 you destroy lands, and your opponent is basically dead. So, it works out really well if you play it fast, if you play it soon. And I actually found the card by accident, not by accident, but I played against a green-black control list with this card, and also with, I'm not sure what the name is, but it makes 2 zombies for 4 mana and has Flashback 7.
I think it's Moan of the Unhallowed.
When I saw my opponent playing this Trumpeting Herd card, I was thinking, it's just perfect for my deck. So I do play a little bit more 4 drops than, than I would like, but it kind of makes for interesting decisions in the early game. Its Trumpeting Herd is just really resilient, so no, I'm really comfortable with this choice of putting this into the deck. I think it's one of the I felt like it really made a difference. You know, especially against Tron, you know, they take a little while to get started, and if you just play this early, it's so much pressure, and also like having a lot of pressure against Tron is not so good. They're gonna just moment piece you out or just take your attack steps. But if you start early with just like small creatures and disrupt them during the game, I think it's a very good plan to success. Also, Trumpeting Herd is super good against Boros Bully. You know, they're not able to block it. It trades 2 for 1 with their cards. It's just good.
Yeah, it seems pretty good against both versions of Boros. Seems pretty good against a whole handful of decks. Definitely a sweet one. You mentioned in that explanation a little bit about Kozilek's Predator, and I was actually asked to ask you a question about Kozilek's Predator. Someone reached out. Interesting fact. You're the only guest where people have reached out to me and asked for you to come on the podcast. Both originally, right, the first time around, people are like, you should really get that Ponderous guy at the Land Destruction deck. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then this time as well, just people come out of the woodwork. They went further this time, and then I actually have a question from someone who listens to the podcast for you. He wants to know, what the heck is the deal with Kozilek's Predator? I really don't see the appeal. I get that it kind of ramps you, but it seems like there's better stuff like Rime Tender. Did you ever consider Rime Tender for your deck? So it's from Modern Horizons as well. It's a 2/2 for 2. It's a snow creature with the ability tap to untap another target snow permanent. So it's basically just a 2-drop Arbor Elf if you're running all snow lands.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I haven't considered this card at all. I don't know. Do I want to play a worse version of Arbor Elf? Not sure. Maybe. Okay, that would lean towards more bigger deck, I would say, because for me, Kozilek's Predator is a creature that helps you cast the expensive spells I have. So it's really easy to get to 4, 5, and 6 mana, but it's really hard to get to 8. And usually you're stuck on 4 or 5, and you're not able to play cards like Mold Shambler with Kicker, that costs 6, and Ulamog's Crusher 8. So sometimes you get stuck with these cards in your hand, which, is not really good. And Kozilek's Predator is basically 2 mana 3/3, so it's really efficient in an early game, and it helps you just cast, the expensive spells that you otherwise are really struggling to cast, because you don't have any card. Okay, you have Entourage of Trust, but other than that, you don't have any card draw. So you're at this spot. You want to draw action. You want to destroy lands, but you also have these expensive cards in your hand. They are not doing anything. So you want to draw lands too. So you want to draw everything, but you don't have enough resources to pressure your opponent in the beginning. I know it is a little bit strange card to play. Yeah, it's super strange card, but I just feel like it kind of fits. But I could be wrong. I just wanted to make a deck that is super efficient, and I don't know. It just worked out for me. I wouldn't change it in the deck for the 2 mana card, but maybe I would just build a different deck with the similar idea, but maybe make it a little bit bigger. Maybe play Orax Horde, the 6 mana 4/4 that finds another one. I would maybe play more of like a value version with these cards if I would go bigger. But I have only a few cards that are really expensive, and I just kind of like, playing my cards. And since I had a lot of experience with the deck, I just really wanted all the cards to be playable, fast enough so they have just apply pressure. But it's interesting. The 2 mana creature is interesting. Maybe I'm gonna put it in, try something different.
Well, I think it's interesting that one of the benefits of Kozilek's Predator is that no one's going to use spot removal on the Eldrazi spawn tokens, right? So that ramp is just waiting to be used, but people may point spot removal at a larger copy of Arbor Elf, especially in the early game, especially if you do a turn 1 Wild Growth or attempting to resolve a Utopia Sprawl or Wild Growth. They might, pop your Arbor Elf or your larger copy of Arbor Elf, but no one's going to point removal at the Eldrazi spawn tokens, so those are kind of guaranteed. You know, you've already banked those once you've played the Predator. You brought up Entourage of Trust in your previous answer. I actually have two questions about Entourage of Trust. The first is that the last version of this deck that we saw, it had 4 main deck Entourage of Trust, and it actually had a couple copies of Wretched Griff. And it looks like these are what became the 4 Trumpeting Herds. You got rid of the 2 copies of Wretched Griff, and it looks like you moved the other 2 copies of Entourage of Trust into your sideboard to make room for the 4 Trumpeting Herd. Do you feel good about the 2-2 split on Entourage of Trust, or is that you going to go back maybe to 4 in the main deck? Is that where you want to be?
So Entourage of Trust is brilliant. Honestly, in the newest version, that's newer than the version I played in the champs. I play 4 Entourage and only 2 Crushers. I did play only 2 Entourage because I did expect Tron, but I also expected aggro to beat Tron. You know, people to play aggro, and Entourage really sucks against flyers. Sometimes it gets out of control. And I felt like with the Trumpeting Herd, it's good enough to have just 2. And I do have 2 in the sideboard against, you know, decks that don't really challenge the Monarch, like Tron and I don't know, like Burn and stuff. Okay, against Burn I have different sideboard completely, but I don't know. I had to make space in the deck, and I just decided that I do want to have 4 in the 75, but then it's okay to have only 2 in the main deck. And honestly, Wretched Griff is a terrible card. I have no idea why I played it in the first place. The main reason is that I wasn't aware of Claws of Wirewood. I knew the card, but I misread it, and I thought it deals 3 damage only to 1 creature, when I found out it deals 3 to all creatures and also players. You know, it's just so much better to cover the air. And you do need to, because otherwise the entourages are, you know, pretty much useless. But I didn't expect so much flyers, so I did put only 2 in my deck, and only in the sideboard. In the previous version, I did play the Griffs in the main board because it used to be like the Jeskai meta with Astrolabe. I did kind of try to, you know, prepare for everything with the deck, even though it's just mono green. So that was a little bit challenging, but yeah, I did. At the end, I decided only for the 2 Entourage, and I'm not really sure about it because it's just I think it's one of the best creatures in the deck for sure. It's just so good in this archetype, you know. You just lack card advantage so much. You have no waste of drawing cards, and this is basically the only way how to generate value. But it can get out of control, so it's a bit of a gamble for sure.
Okay, so it looks like the slot that used to be Penumbra Spider became the Claws of Wirewood. Something that's new and interesting in your sideboard is the copy of Quiet Disrepair. How did you stumble across Quiet Disrepair? It looks like it's the 5th sideboard card against Burn, while also being the 3rd copy of Enchantment or Artifact Destruction to match with the 2 Gleeful Sabotages. So it looks like you found something that's a little versatile. It sort of turns the corner in a couple different matchups. How did you decide on Quiet Disrepair?
Yeah, basically what you mentioned. Quiet Disrepair is an interesting card. I know that I can't play a lot of them because I have only 4 sprawls for growths. It doesn't happen so often that you can use it on opponent's things. Maybe against Burn you use it on the enchantment that deals 1 damage, the curse. I don't know, I just felt like, you know, Weather the Storm is the best card against Burn that I can play, for sure. There's also Nourish that I played in the previous version, I feel. But the Nourish didn't really feel great. It's just Weather the Storm is usually much better. And Quiet Disrepair kind of, yeah, as you mentioned, it's just good that I can sideboard it against Affinity, but I can also sideboard it against Burn. And it's just like, I really wanted to win against Burn because it's such a challenging matchup for this deck. And you kind of, you know, this deck is good against certain decks, but it's really bad against others. So I really try to tune the sideboard in order to beat the decks that are, the really bad matchups, so I can have some chance. And Burn is one of them. Burn is really strong, and I did expect a little bit more Burn than people were playing, because I felt like Burn can always win. It's really good against Tron. Also, I feel like I don't know. I actually haven't played that matchup so much, so I'm not sure. But like in theory, feels okay. So yeah, Quiet Disrepair is just kind of seemed to fit the spot. So, and I was kind of glad with the card. It won me one of the games against Burn. So I'm pretty glad I put it in.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. It's one I haven't seen in a while. That was actually the draft format. The year that I qualified for U.S. Nationals was Time Spiral block draft, and I actually wound up losing a round to a guy who just had all the copies of Quiet Disrepair. No one wanted them. He had like 6, and he just like started stacking them on my stuff and was gaining 10 life every turn. I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I can't kill him anymore. This is like the weirdest way to win. And so I was like, well, you know what? I was on the play. He was on the draw. He's going to deck first because his deck didn't seem to have any creatures. Like, he's going to deck first. And then he found a copy of Ancestral Visions.
Oh, and he used it on you. Sick.
He used it on me to make me draw cards. It was pretty dirty. He definitely went undefeated in that draft pod. I forget if that was the round that we had 4 rounds, because they made us play a 4-round draft pod as well as a 3-round draft pod. I think it was, actually. I think that he went 4-0 with this Quiet Disrepair deck, and it was a pretty nasty strategy just because no one took the card seriously. It was a card that you get stuck in draft all the time, because this was back before basic lands were back in the packs. Yeah, it was like just this terrible card, and he wound up with like 6 of them, because 6 out of the 8 packs that were cracked had a copy. And yeah, it's one I haven't seen in a while. Yeah, it's interesting. It was a nice find, I feel like, on your part. I think it's worth noting that between the last version of this deck and this version of the deck, you've got 4 gut shots and 4 weather the storms. And I think that really speaks volumes as to how the burn matchup has to be. But the gut shots, are they still just there for fairies? What are the gut shots around for?
So the gut shots are mainly land destructions against elves, and like the elves is the worst matchup ever for this deck, because they're able to generate so much fast mana, and sometimes they keep hands that are debatable, are kind of depending on their mana dorks to survive. So I felt like 4 gut shots is basically the same as Thermokarst against elves, even better somehow, because they have Korean Ranger, which is super dirty against me. So I need to get rid of this card. I put some gut shots in against Stompy 2. Just like an effect. I'm not really, that you don't really get in the color, so I think it's worth. I did actually feel, I was thinking about playing Electricary in a deck, and about including Abundant Growth. So I thought about including few copies of that card, and then with the Utopia Sprawl, it could be feasible to play Electricary. But I felt like it's just too much hassle. It gives me a little bit of chance, but like Electricary is gonna be sometimes uncastable, and feels like it's just like really gimmicky, So I decided against it. I think that Mono Green is straight up better than Green Red, and I did try a lot of variations of this deck. So I played, I tried Blue Green with Ristic Study. I tried Red Green with Red Land Destructions and some other stuff. I just feel like, just straight up green is gonna be always better, because you're just so much faster, and, tap lands really, you can suffer really a lot from tap lands. Fetches just so slow. And for this deck to like really do its thing, you need to do it really efficiently and really fast. Otherwise, it's just not good enough.
So my second question that I had about Entourage Trust, did you invest in them before this tournament? Because they doubled at one point, they had tripled in value after your finish.
Oh, I was buying Entourage of Trust. I actually did not. I'm not into MTG Finance. I feel like it's a horrible part of MTG. It's people making money of scarcity. I know, I understand it. It's like an exploitable strategy in poker. It's fine. It's just not my thing. So it would be a good move now when I see that they're like $5, 5 ticks each or something. And I used to buy it. I bought it for like, I don't know, 50 cents, not even. That was, I bought them a long time ago, but I don't remember them being so high. So I actually Yeah, so I did not invest in them, but it would be a good move for sure.
Well, I feel like you're probably the primary factor in their overnight doubling. I don't think there's been too many other people putting up tournament results with a 5-drop common across the other formats. Now, one of our previous guests on the podcast as well, he used to invest in a deck before he started playing it, Paulo Cabral. He would buy 80, 100 copies of Tribe, and then he'd be like, I'm going to grind Tribe until people take it seriously and they start playing it. The price of Tribe goes up, and then I'm going to sell all these Tribes. I was just curious if you knew you'd ever consider doing that, because you're coming in with the weird brews. You're always coming in out of left field, and they're, it would have worked out. I'm just saying it would have worked out with this entourage of trust. But yeah, I'm not really into the MTG finance scene either. I have only so many things that I can track and pay attention to. I just don't have time for that. I mean, it's fascinating. I know people that have done it to great success, but I only have so much brain power and I can't devote any more to anything new like that. Those are my 2 questions about Entourage to Trust. I'm going to guess that you played against Tron for most of your rounds, but can you walk me through your tournament?
Oh yeah, so round 1 I was playing against some old guy, and he was on a blue-red control. Yeah, my strategy proved to be pretty good against him, especially if I just took him out of red color, then just wasn't able to do anything pretty much. So yeah, sometimes the strategy with this deck is, sometimes you wanna, especially, I never really talked about this. It's not as easy to play against Tron as one might think. Like I oversimplify sometimes, but it's good to, like, sometimes you need to destroy the Tron lands, but sometimes it's better to destroy the colored lands. So it's kind of interesting how that works out. So I did play against blue-red Delver in the second round, and now when I see the game, I made a really good play that I'm kind of proud of. So my best play of the tournament, I feel like, was in the second turn against blue-red. My opponent, I played Arbor Elf turn 1, but I was on a draw. So my opponent had the counterspell up, and I had Nest Invader. I had 2 options to play. I could have gone for Utopia Sprawl or Nest Invader. I correctly baited out Counterspell by playing Nest Invader and then played the Utopia Sprawl. Well, my main concern was actually to play around the Spellstarter Sprite, because it's Utopia Sprawl is 1 mana spell. So I wanted to bait out normal Counterspell for my opponent to tap out and then play Utopia Sprawl for 1 mana. That way, it not being countered. I feel like if you want to play this deck, it's really important to play around counter spells really well. Sometimes not even play anything if your opponent is on a deck that is not really doing a lot in your turn if they're not countering. But okay, that was the second game that I played. It was Blue-Red Delver, so I had 2 Blue-Red decks in the first 2 rounds. In the round 3, I faced Pascal at 3000, and he was on Tron. It was actually a three game round, but I think I won 2. Then in the 4th round, I played against Raptor 56.
I'm going to guess that did not go very well for Raptor, considering he was also trying to put Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth on his lands.
Oh yeah, Raptor was on this amazing deck. Yeah, I really adored his deck. It was awesome. But yeah, it didn't really go well for him, unfortunately, because my deck is basically like a perfect counter against his deck.
I could definitely see that.
Okay, then so I was 4-0 at this point. I played the 5th game against it's a funny name, and he was on Affinity, and I lost that one. Affinity is one of the worst matchups, so I got defeated in that game, but it was all good. I had the 4-1 at that point, so it wasn't big of a deal. I was just happy to qualify, to get in the top 8, because before that doesn't really matter. Okay, and actually interesting, playing against Casa, and I think that he had I think he was the first in the 6th round. I think he was the first for sure, and he was on Tron, and he didn't show me his deck in the first game at all, and I think he also the second game he also resigned without even playing, which is a really interesting decision that I think was really good for him, just by game theory, because he was going to top 8, I was going to top 8, and he knew what my deck was, but I didn't know what his deck was. So especially him being on Tron, I felt like
That was a good move, just concealing information as much as you can. It was really well played. But yeah, it was a defeat against Ron then. Victory. Then I played against Bilster.
He's on that blue-red flicker control deck. That was very interesting.
Yeah? Okay, so I did actually face a lot of blue-red, interestingly enough. Okay, but I managed to win that also.
And then in the top 4, I'm guessing you got Bogold?
Yeah, I got Bogold. But man, the game was so close. I lost the first one, I won the second one. And then in the third one, it was so close. It was so close to the dream, but yeah, I was kind of happy for Kier Blinksy. He played very well. He constructed the deck very well. It was all good. No hard feelings. But I was so close. You're in a top 4. It kind of sucks to get boggled. But as I said, no hard feelings. It happens. I'm basically also doing a very linear strategy that kind of tries to lock your opponent from doing anything from your strategy. So and what kind of sucked though is that my boggles matchup is not that bad, and I felt like I lost mainly because I was on a draw. If I would be on a play, it would be a completely different story, because I play elf first, and then second turn I can destroy land, and it's just enough to not let your opponent to do anything, kind of. Yeah, if they're on a play, they're gonna play a boggle first, and then just put anything on it whilst I try to build up my mana, and it's just enough to get under me. It really in this matchup it really depends on who's on the play, who's on the draw. But yeah, that's Magic. So yeah, good games to him. So yeah, that was my tournament. I actually faced only 2 Tron decks, and one didn't even play against me. So yeah, it was but it was kind of cool seeing that the deck works also against basically anything. Yeah, it was good.
Well, I think it's a fantastic story. Registered the wrong deck, takes 4th in a tournament where 39 other players registered the right deck. Well, actually, that's not true, because Helsal had some problems that he mentioned, that he registered the wrong version of Tron, couldn't switch, couldn't figure out how to switch. So, at least 38 other players registered the deck they intended to register. Worked out pretty well for the guy who accidentally found himself on forests. I think that's a great story. It's got to be one of the best, if not the best, stories from this championship. I'm so glad that you got to come on and share it with us.
Man, it was meant to be. I told you, it was meant to be.
Moving forward, is there anything that you would suggest changing with the deck? Anything that you're working on for anyone who's looking to play this deck? Can you tell us about, moving forward with it? Anything that you're going to be doing?
So what I ended up doing right after the championship was going down to 2 Crushers in a main and swapping it with the Entourage, because Entourage is just so ideal for this deck. It's such an amazing creature, and I honestly don't know why it doesn't see any play whatsoever outside this deck. I'm not even sure if it was played in this deck before I made this, because I was just kind of going from scratch, not really looking up a lot, at other deck lists. I would suggest to play 4 Entourage in a main instead of this, and you kind of have to think about the meta and try to, it's like with all the other decks. But if you're gonna play this and you're at your LGS, prepared to get bullied in real life, it's it's just it doesn't create a lot of interesting games for your opponent. It's just, I wouldn't play this deck outside big tournaments, but I feel like for big tournaments it's really good, because people are not, I feel like nobody's really ready for land destruction, and it's kind of hard to be ready for it. Yeah, I feel like if you want to win, it's great. I had a lot of success in it in leagues also, but yeah, I wouldn't really play it in real life, because I feel like if you're playing in LGSs, then you kind of want to have fun games, and this is really not a fun deck to play against. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work, and it's not really fun for you either. It's kind of a hit and miss sometimes, but I did try to make it as mid-rangey as possible to make it a little bit interesting. But yeah, good luck to everyone who wants to try it out. I hope they're gonna have a lot of fun. Fun is sum 0. If you're having all the fun, your opponent has no fun. So yeah, it's all good. Well, I guess the new set is kind of interesting. I did try the the Daybreak Chimera, or how it's called, the potentially 2-mana 3/3 flying. So I felt like it needs to, it has a place in some kind of white Weenie deck. So, you know, that's something I brewed with a little bit to try to make it work. But the white Weenie in general is kind of, it's kind of like cooking without salt. It's just I don't know, doesn't do much for me. But there's a bunch of enchantment cards that I feel like could find a good home. There's this blue giant that gets cheaper for every enchantment you have on your battlefield. So that's kind of something I would like to explore. You have you have Curse of Crucifix for a card advantage. So I felt like there might be a really good deck hidden somewhere in like a bunt or like blue. Yeah, I would probably play it blue, green, white. Some kind of enchantment, not really control, but like a tempo with these giants and Utopia Sprawls and all these enchantments on your like land enchantments. I feel like there might be a deck and something to explore. So I encourage everyone to try something out with that. I'm definitely gonna try it. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. Pauper is kind of. I do want to talk about one thing, and that's I feel like some cards should be unbanned. I feel like Wizards should try to make Pauper a little bit more fun. I feel like we could unban Grape Shot. It's just we can unban Gush and I don't know about Daze. But Gush kind of like took a lot of combo decks that were really nice and just destroyed them. And I feel like, okay, it was a really strong card, effects that don't really cost mana are strong, but it's not like Pauper is not really about that. It's more about finding good payoffs. Because you get a lot of free stuff, you get Lotus Petals, and all like Simian Spirit Guide. You get all kinds of free mana. So I don't feel like free cards are that big of an issue. I feel like we could leave Astrolabe in the meta. I don't know. If we had Astrolabe, then Grape Shot, unban, and then I don't know, like maybe like Frantic Search. Okay, that's maybe too much. I kind of like one time I look at the ban list and I felt like a lot of these cards could be legal if you just unban multiple of those, so they kind of like counter each other. And it would be a interesting way how to counter Tron, because Tron is super dominant in the meta, and I don't think it's ever gonna go away. And you can never really print a card that's gonna be good against it. And whatever you print is gonna just help Tron. Like Astrolabe just help Tron, and it wasn't even designed for Tron purposes. It's like it was designed for the opposite. And I feel like you can't really have interesting control decks because of Tron. And if you would just put Gush and Grape Shot back in the game, could kind of help to both counter Tron and just like create more fun games. And I don't feel like doing broken things is bad for Pauper. It would be kind of fun. I don't know. Maybe they can just try it and then ban it again. I don't know. But Grape Shot would be fine. I feel like Empty would be maybe too strong. Okay, maybe I'm missing something and Gut Shot is better than Empty. But I feel like it could exist in Pauper, and that it's kind of a pity that they don't really think about these things.
So, have you played a lot with Mystic Sanctuary at all?
Not really. I did try a little bit, but I'm not big of a fan of playing flicker decks, like blue-based flicker decks in Pauper on MTGO, because it's just a lot of clicking and it gets dubious, and I don't know, it's just so much work,
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that we can have Gush legal with Mystic Sanctuary, but if anyone at Wizards is listening, I would like to negotiate a hostage exchange. You give me my Gush back, and you can have Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah, right? I feel like Gush creates more fun than Mystic Sanctuary, because Mystic Sanctuary Deprive, or I don't know, Flicker or something, is just it's more about locking your opponent out, and Gush is more about doing wacky things that are a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm down with Gush. I really enjoyed playing with Gush. Mystic Sanctuary is very strong Magic card. It should absolutely be on Wizard's sort of radar. I'm not sure if the card's too strong. It's just very strong. It's certainly worth playing with if you're playing Pauper at this time. In my assessment, I don't think that you should be doing anything other than playing Tron if you want to win a big tournament. But if you have a soul, then perhaps Tron lands are not for you. In that case, you may consider Mystic Sanctuaries, the next best thing that you could be doing in Pauper, in my opinion, at least, and something that I'm currently doing as well. I just don't think that card can exist with Gush. That would be a little too strong than both of them, but Gush was definitely fun. Definitely really unique, interesting magic card. Do you do it main phase? Do you do it in response to things? Do you use it to ramp yourself as a, semi-land drop? There's interesting gameplay with Gush. I don't feel like there's any interesting gameplay with Mystic Sanctuary. Well, okay, that's not true. There can be. It depends how stacked that graveyard it is. Depends how many different options that you have. That it can be interesting. Point being, I don't think they can exist simultaneously, but if I had to choose, I would certainly prefer the format with Gush. Gush is, I was sad to see Gush go, I guess.
Okay, what do you think about Grape Shot?
I'm sure that someone like Raptor would get it banned again. Or maybe not just someone like Raptor, just the actual Raptor would be the guy.
Yeah, maybe you're right. But, I don't know. It's just, maybe it would just be a way to deal with Tron. Yeah, I guess it's just too strong. Like, Storm is too easy to accomplish in Pauper. You get all the rituals.
I mean, there's a lot of counter spells in this format. There's spell starter sprites. People main deck dispel randomly. Even Familiars has Prohibit. So, I don't know. It would be interesting. It'd definitely be a different format.
Yeah, I think it's just worth trying out again. Because, Grape Shot got banned a long time ago. And the game definitely changed. I remember the Peregrine Drake days. Good old days.
So did you have the chance to prepare a Silly Slivers ability?
I did actually, man. I have a great sliver ability for your slivers.
Oh, I can't wait. What is it?
Okay, so it's an activated ability for 1 white, 1 blue, 1 green, 1 red, and 1 black. And it says, call mom. Call the queen. I feel like even the slivers get sometimes bullied in school, or are not really in a great spot, and they really need to call their mama, the sliver queen, to come and help them. I feel like they would really like it.
Definitely not the mother that the other children on the playground want to mess with. I think that Sliver's ability is tremendous. It's hilarious to imagine little boy and little girl slivers just getting pushed around on the playground. What if they were to grow up, though, and find themselves with an ability like all slivers have got to get a job so that they can move out of their mother's basement because they relied on mom for too long, and, they're that awkward stage of life where they're in their 20s, but just still living in their mother's basement. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks first of all for having me. I enjoy doing this occasionally. I'm glad I could, speak my mind about this Mono Green list, about what a brilliant mistake it was to register it. Yeah, I hope we're gonna hear each other on some other podcasts soon with maybe a little bit more wacky strategies that I'm gonna come up with from the new set. So yeah, it was nice. Yeah, I would like to say good luck to everyone who tries my deck, and I hope it works out for them. And remember, if you're having all the fun, your opponent has no fun, and that's the most amount of fun you can have. And man, if you want a name or for the deck, I feel like something like Elephant Tribal or Mono Green 4-drops would be great.
Okay, he has spoken. Anyone looking to play his deck should refer to it as either Elephant Tribal or Mono Green 4-drops. And thanks once more to my guest for coming on the podcast. Always a pleasure with Ponderous. He's a very interesting Pauper player. The Black-White Ephemerite deck, I've included that list as a link in the description on both Audio Boom and on YouTube. So if you're listening to this somewhere else, please do consider checking in either on YouTube or alternatively on Audio Boom, and you will find a link to a very interesting deck list that, honestly, with a little tuning, wouldn't be half bad. It does play Ephemerate. That card is pretty good. And so truly is the story of a guy who registered the wrong deck and did better than a room full of people who were prepared to play that day with decks that they chose days to weeks in advance. Coming up on the podcast, 2 more stories from the Format Championship. The story of the most interesting deck lists of the tournaments and how it was arrived at, as well as the story of the champion, whose story rivals Ponderous in terms of uniqueness, in terms of interesting. And I can't wait to share them with you. So please do join me next week, and I'll see you there.